G'day guys and welcome back to MotoringBox. On today's episode I'm going to give you a closer look at my new car, a BA Mark II XR6 Turbo. So before we get going guys, I just want to give everyone a big thank you who tuned in to my Friday night premiere, which was saying goodbye to my VT Calais and hello to my new BA XR6 Turbo. In case it wasn't obvious enough, the VT has been moved on to a new owner. His name's Alan and he's really loving the car. He is an Ipswich local and he's already given it a service and put some suspension bushings in it, and he's really going to be an owner that's going to look after that car. So I am thrilled that it's gone to someone who's going to take care of it, and he is a MotoringBox subscriber. So if you're out there, Alan, g'day, and I hope you're still loving the car. But then of course I had a few dollars in my pocket and the search was on to buy a new car to feature on MotoringBox. I had a few different cars from a few different manufacturers that was on my shortlist, and I'm not really going to tell you what they are because I want to keep that a secret. Some of my Patreon subscribers know the cars that I'm after, but one of the finalists on that list was a BA or BF XR6 Turbo, and I had it narrowed down to a couple of trim levels. The first one was a BA XR6 Turbo, the Mark II with a 6-speed manual in Mercury Silver, and that is the one that I ended up with. But the second one was a BF Falcon with the 6-speed ZF automatic, and I was hoping to get that in either a silver or bionic, which is a XR or FPV specific color. It's bright blue, but as is the way with a lot of BA and BF colors, many of them haven't really held up well under the Australian sun over the years, and unfortunately the blue bionic colour is one of those colours that has really suffered over the years. Many of the examples that I'd seen for sale had paint fade and clear coat peeling. But let me tell you, I had to fight super hard to get this car because demand for XR6 turbos, no matter what the model, is currently through the roof at the moment. It really is a seller's market. Many of the examples I found, I found a BF XR6 Turbo in Sydney. It was a 6-speed manual as well. And that thing got sold, I reckon, within the hour. And it was the same story really with every single other car I inquired about. Luckily though, I was actually working at home one day and I just stopped for my lunch break. It was about 12:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And after lunch I jumped on the sofa to chill out for a bit, fired up Facebook Marketplace, and I saw this thing for sale. It had just been listed about 15 minutes prior to me seeing the ad. So I shot a message through to the guy. His name was Wayne, awesome bloke. And I said, hey, can I come over and have a look at this thing after work? About 5:30 p.m, I'll come over and check it out. And he was like, yeah, that's fine, I'll see you then. But about 10 minutes later, he sent another message through to me and he said, hey Sean, are you definitely going to come and check this car out this afternoon? Because my messenger is on meltdown at the moment. Apparently he had about 20 or 30 other people who were all hounding him to buy this car. So I knew then and there that I had to go and check it out straight away. So I shot over there in the Fairlane. I got some time off work to do that, and I wasn't disappointed with what I saw. As you would have seen in the premiere video on Friday night, this thing is a 6-speed manual. The BA Mark Is, which are from 2002, 2003, and I think into 2004, they were a T5 5-speed manual. But for the BA Mark II, they switched it out to a 6-speed manual. And I tell you what, I'm really glad to be driving a manual gearboxed car again, especially one that's turbocharged. But let's take a closer look at the car in a second, because let me tell you why I purchased a BA XR6 Turbo. So the very first reason that I purchased a BA XR6 Turbo is because it marks a point in Ford Australia's history where they went from the lows of the unpopular AU Falcon to the highs of when they released the BA Falcon. I think it's really the most successful facelift in Australian automotive history. And Ford have really done a fantastic job with the look of this car, considering so many of the design elements were carryovers from the AU Falcon. The second reason I purchased this car is that I've got really fond memories of when it came out. Ford had that really successful advertising campaign that I based my video on. That can't get enough of this ad. I think it's one of the best ads in Australian automotive history. And I was really keen to see what all the fuss is all about, even though I'm probably about 16 years too late. But no matter, You know, I've got really fond memories of watching the V8 supercars back in the day. I know they weren't road-going production models, but watching Marcus Ambrose thundering around, smashing the competition in his Pertec BA Falcon racing car really was a fantastic time for Ford fans in general. And Ford really got their mojo back with the design of the car, but also the engines as well, of course. And although I could probably stand here all day and give you many more reasons why I picked this car and get blown away in the wind in the meantime, perhaps the biggest reason for me personally is that I think the BA Falcon in XR form is probably the most resolved, toughest, and most beautiful looking Falcon made in modern times. And again, I was super lucky to get this one for the price that I did. I don't like to mention exact figures. I can tell you that this one cost me more than 5 grand, but less than 10. And that really is where these cars are at the moment. So really, if you're in the market for a BA or BF XR6 Turbo, be prepared to fight for it because there are so many people out there looking for these cars. And it's definitely because of what lurks under the bonnet. And what I'm gonna do now, so you don't have to stand here looking at me all day, is I'll come and grab the camera and go into vlog mode so you can see the car a little bit closer. So let's take a closer look here. As you can see, the paintwork is in really good condition, super shiny, but the thing about it is I still haven't given this car a proper detailing yet. And when I was giving it a wipe over, especially on the roof here, it's actually super gritty. So I'm really excited to see what results I can get here after giving this car a proper clean. But as you can see, this is why I think the BA XR series are probably the most beautiful Falcons ever. I mean, get a load of this front end. I really like the headlights where they sort of continue down into the bumpers with those two little scalloped zones there. And just take a look at the front end, you know, I really love the way these cars look. It does have a few stone chips here and there, but I'm gonna get a touch-up pen and try and make them just a little bit less visible. And while the wheels do have a tiny bit of rash on a couple of them, they still look really good. I've had to replace the center caps on 2 of these wheels as well. They were missing, and the third one was actually glued on for some reason. But I've since fixed that up, and you can get a little bit of a look there of these slotted brake rotors that are in behind. No shuddering issues or anything. It's super smooth braking even from highway speeds, 100 k's an hour, so super happy with that. But I'll get the wheels off at a later date and have a look at the brake pads as well. But no issues that I can tell at the moment, except for one big one that I'll get to soon. And moving down the side of the car, really neat and tidy. There's no really major dents or damage or anything. The funny thing about filming videos about cars is sometimes I'll be editing the video and notice something while I'm editing that I didn't actually notice in real life. And one of them is actually this XR6 Turbo badge. If we have a closer look, it looks all fairly normal, but from an angle, I've noticed some of the letters don't really line up. I don't know if you can tell, but I don't know whether this car's been debadged at some point. Perhaps just the turbo part was taken off to make it look like a, you know, just a normal XR6 sleeper. But I'm probably going to have to replace this badge at some point because it is just not quite on straight for some reason. But that's not a big problem. You can still get these badges brand new off eBay for about 40 to 50 bucks. And the XR6 chrome portion is also not quite perfect, so I think it'll be really good to fix that up properly. But yes, the paintwork's still really good. No paint fade anywhere. Rear spoiler's looking fantastic. I think Mercury Silver is probably one of the better colors available on these cars. And you know, it's really held up well some 16 years later after this car was bought brand new back in 2004. So let's take a closer look on the inside. Actually, you know what? Before the inside, let me show you under the bonnet. So as you would have seen in the video that I published on Friday, well, some of you would have noticed anyway, the engine bay is a little bit dirty. But you know, that's not such a big deal. I don't mind cleaning things up. But yes, there's not really anything in the way of oil leaks or anything like that. It's just everything is just a little bit grotty. And I think it's probably going to benefit from a spray of degreaser and maybe a pressure washer. But you know, that's not the end of the world. I can do that. and I can bring you guys along for the journey as well, because I'm sure a few of you guys, I've had a couple of comments in the past from people saying, why don't we do an engine bay detailing video? So this is probably going to be the prime time to actually do that. But otherwise, everything under here is pretty standard. It's all in good condition, it's all present. There's no dodgy airboxes or bullshit mods or anything like that. And yes, it just looks like a really well maintained car. Still the standard Garrett turbo lurking down the side there. But yes, it's a super powerful, smooth engine. It may only have 240 kilowatts and I think 450 newton meters of torque. And of course in my car, the engine is mated to a 6-speed manual transmission. And there's going to be some people out there, I think I had a comment already saying, why didn't you go for a BF Falcon with the 6-speed automatic transmission? After all, you know, it's a quicker gearbox, you can get faster quarter-mile times and just better performance in general. And really, it comes down to your personal preference, I think. I'm not someone who takes their car drag racing or does street racing, you know, drags away from the traffic lights or things like that. So I couldn't really give a toss as to which one is faster. What I do care about is which one is more fun. And I always maintain that if you want a proper driver's car that's fun for taking through the mountains on the weekend or just enjoying driving in general, you can't beat a manual transmission. You know, the feeling of getting the clutch blips just right as you're downshifting, and you really do feel like you're more engaged with the car. So you know what, I'm really glad to find a 6-speed manual. And you know, the amazing thing about the manual XR6 turbos as well is that they're really quite rare. I think from factory when they were producing these back in the day that roughly 80 to 85% of these cars were automatics. So think about how many manual XR6 turbos are still around. I reckon when I was looking on car sales and also Facebook Marketplace, the automatics, you know, say if there were 20 XR6 turbos for sale in total, I reckon at least 17 or 18 would have been automatics. So to get a manual is a really lucky thing. And I am really glad that I found one. So what I'll do is bring you through to the inside now and we can have a closer look at the interior. So there are a few things you will notice immediately about this interior, and the first one is that it has the full color screen ICC. There's some aftermarket gauges on the top here, which I'll touch on soon. But perhaps the thing I love the most about this car are these seats. These were actually an optional extra back in the day. I think they were called sports leather, and in a way it's very similar to these seats in my AU. And that's because the bolsters are leather, and of course all the way up around the top here, and the headrests as well. But the inserts are actually a sort of suede with this really grippy style material. As you can see, these are actually like little bumps, and they do really grab onto you when you're driving. You don't slide anywhere, which I think is a really nice feature. The bolstering as well is really quite good. For my body shape anyway, it holds me perfectly, and it really inspires you through the corners to push the car just a little bit harder. But overall, it's in really good condition, 122,000 kilometers, as I just mentioned. When you get the sports leather interior, you also get suede here on the door cards, which I think looks quite smart. And likewise, the back seats are also in really good condition. I think they've barely been used. Really quite happy. It smells really good compared to my AU Fairmont as well. It's a non-smoker car. So yes, really happy with how that all looks. So let's duck around to the driver's side and have a look. So the interior of this car is really quite neat. You know, a lot of people have slammed what Ford did with the BA Falcon, saying the interiors were shit and they didn't stack up to the AU. But I don't really see the case. I know some of these plastics here on the top of the dash and also the doors do look a little bit plain. But really, there's nothing wrong, I think, with what Ford have done. It looks a lot better than the AU for sure. And really, for the touch points, you know, the leather wheel is really good. This one looks almost brand new, which is a real bonus. So one of the things I wanted to talk about in here that I really like, apart from the full color screen ICC, which is a major bonus, and the seats, of course, too, you know, they're probably my favorite part of the car. But the other thing I wanted to touch on here is this triple gauge cluster sitting at the top of the center stack. Now, when I first saw these, I thought they were just a cheap eBay special gauge cluster holder, and also the gauges themselves don't look too fancy, but I actually did a bit more research because on the faces here, it actually says PP Auto. And I'm sure you could put a dick joke in there, of course, but it really reaffirmed my assumption that they were just cheap gauges from overseas. But I did a little bit more digging and I actually found a website from circa 2007 from a company called Pole Position Auto. They're Australian based and I think they were from Sydney, but they actually designed this triple gauge holder and the gauges themselves to perfectly match the XR6 Turbo dashboard. And I think they've done a really fantastic job. You've got the blue faces, the red dials to match the dash, and the plastic they've used here on the holder is also really good quality. I've heard horror stories and videos on YouTube showing what happens when you try to remove the stock panel which sits here on the top of the dash. Because it's copping the full brunt of the Australian sun, more often than not the plastic that Ford used on that panel will simply snap or disintegrate in your hands when you try and pry it up with a trim removal tool. But I've actually had this one off and the plastic still seems to be like brand new, which is pretty amazing when you consider these gauges were on sale circa 2006, 2007. And when you go through all these old forum posts where people are getting recommendations on which gauges to go for in their cars, a lot of people were referring the PP Auto X-Force gauges. So they're probably one of the better options available for this car unless you went for the Autometer Cobalt series, which I think look really good too. But I'm probably going to keep these and I'm going to have to fix up the wiring on them because the first one here closest to the driver is actually the boost pressure and it was working when I picked the car up, but it isn't anymore. The second one here is oil pressure and that works fine, which is a bonus. And the last one is oil temperature and that hasn't been working ever since I bought it. In fact, the last gauge wasn't even plugged in when I picked the car up. But after I plugged it in, it's just reading 145 all the time. So it's definitely not connected to anything, or maybe it's been wired up incorrectly. So at some point, I'm going to have to get the center stack off, chase the wiring, see where it goes and see what's going on. If anyone has any information about these gauges, like wiring diagrams, or can assist me with doing that, I'd really love to hear from you. So that's one small issue, but there is one bigger issue with this car that I need to get fixed. And I guess I can call it an issue because it is something that needs to be replaced, but it is a part that wears out with time. I'm of course talking about the clutch. You see, when I first picked up this car, I noticed when getting on full boost with it, the RPMs would sort of raise up a little bit before dropping down and then the car would start charging ahead. I initially thought, because I wasn't familiar with it, that maybe the rear tires were sort of spinning a little bit before gripping and then firing the car forward. But what was actually happening was the clutch was slipping a little bit when the car came on boost. The problem is slowly getting worse. It's not the end of the world yet, because when you drive the car normally, it doesn't slip at all. It's just when you floor it and it really punches on boost that it slips just a little bit. When you're sort of half throttle, boosting it lightly, there's no problem. So I do have a little bit of time up my sleeve before I need to get it fixed. But it's just a bit of a shame because, you know, that problem is just holding me back from enjoying the car 100%. I have done a bit of research about clutches for the 6-speed manual, and there have been a couple of names that have popped up. There's a mob called Extreme Clutch in South Australia who do clutch kits for these cars. But one other name that always came up when people were talking clutches on XR6 turbos was a guy called Mal Wood. He is apparently the XR6 turbo clutch guru, and his workshop is actually not too far from here. He's out in a town called Warwick, which is about an hour and a half's drive from here. So if anyone knows Mal and can help line this up, I'd really love to go out there, check out his business, talk clutches, have a look at the one that's in this car and also get one of his new kits installed. So if anyone out there knows Mal and can help facilitate that, please do let me know. I'd love to hear from you. But apart from the clutch, everything else on this car is in really good condition. There's no issues with how it drives, really smooth on the road. I really do think the value of these cars is about to go through the roof because the demand far exceeds the supply and people are just chasing these cars really hard on the second-hand market. Whether it's on Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree or car sales, if you see a BA or BF XR6 Turbo for sale that you want, don't waste time because someone else is going to snap it up before you if you stuff around. And that's a closer look at my BA Mark II XR6 Turbo. As you can tell, I'm really happy to finally be an XR6 Turbo driver and see what all the fuss is about with this car and this engine. And you are going to see a lot more of this car on the channel in the near future. as we diagnose some of the issues, hopefully get a new clutch fitted and do some minor mods perhaps as well. So sorry if I disappoint any of you, but this is not going to turn out to be a 620 horsepower Barra build or anything like that. I like to drive my cars, enjoy them without worrying that things are going to break because of all the power you're putting through a standard driveline. So that's it guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've got any thoughts on my BA Mark II XR6 Turbo, do let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, please consider subscribing to MotoringBox and check out the other videos I've got here on the side. See you next time.